Ladies and gentlemen, the time is now 7 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody here. It's good to see everybody out here. Our first order of business is going to be our Pledge of Allegiance. We'll get Commissioner Brown to lead us off. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is now 7 o'clock.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first order of business is our consent agenda. Item A, October 7th, 2024 minutes. Item B, fiscal year 25 budget amendment number 7. Item C, releases, adjustments, refunds, and tax collection report. Item D, airport T hangar number 8 lease. Item E is a library amendment to the state fiscal recovery funds grant contract. Item F is human resources policy, pregnant workers fairness act policy. Item G is human resources policy, sick leave policy. Item H is human resources policy, vacation leave policy. And item I is a resolution to direct the expenditure of opioid settlement funds. Any discussion? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
There's been a motion made and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And here we are, item 2. Most important part of the meeting again is comments from the public. And our first sign up tonight is Matson Rizzo. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying.
Thank you, Commissioner Floyd. Mason Rizzo. Commissioners, administration, and my brothers and sisters in the Franklin County community, it's a privilege to be assembling with you today. First, allow me to publicly recognize the town of Youngsville's work to provide much needed relief for our friends in Western North Carolina. Our mayor, town commissioners and staff, and community members have spent time in and have sent resources to areas impacted by Hurricane Helene. Their courage and willingness to provide for our fellow Carolinians represents the sort of human kindness and decency that we should all aspire to, irrespective of our differences. Now, I'm here to talk about the absence of human decency that my neighbors and I are forced to confront day in and day out on the local streets in the town of Youngsville. Make no mistake about this address tonight. I'm not here to complain about traffic. My friends, my neighbors, and the community members are well beyond that. I'm here to give this board and the citizens of this county primary source feedback to the dangers of Youngsville streets. I'm not talking about Main Street, which is dangerous in its own right. Remember, I was mowed down by a car in the middle of a crosswalk and still feel its consequences in my bones day after day. I want to talk about Winston Street, Franklin Street, and Cross Street. This is a neighborhood of about 50 houses and rentals with children, retirees, and people of all shape and color. It's no secret that access points on these streets, the Highway 96, gets abused constantly. In fact, last Monday I met with Representative Matthew Winslow seeking guidance on ways to make the north downtown center of Youngsville safer for pedestrians. He jokingly referred to this road appetite as the Youngsville bypass, which in a way is kind of funny, I guess, if you're considering how much pain and effort the town is currently going through to get an actual bypass built. What's not funny, though, is what this de facto bypass has done to the neighborhood. The U.S. Department of Transportation clearly outlines in its 2024 progress report on National Roadway Safety Strategy that drivers who use neighborhood side streets as cut-throughs are routinely impatient and highly likely to engage in dangerous behaviors like speeding, aggressive driving, and failing to yield to pedestrians or stop signs. This isn't just hearsay. I have cameras watching the four-way intersection at Cross Street and Franklin Street, and I have hundreds of videos of vehicles speeding north and south to get to Highway 96. These range from motorcycles to 18-wheelers, speeding up and down neighborhood streets, running stop signs, and otherwise driving like bats out of hell to save a few minutes on their commute while our children play exactly meters away from this traffic. Now this is an intersection I'm talking about. We don't have crosswalks. We don't have raised medians. We don't have desperately needed speed humps, speed tables, or truly any safety measure of any kind. We barely have sidewalks. The north block of downtown has sidewalks that are only accessible to about 10% of total residents in the neighborhood. The rest of us have to walk in the street, the same streets that these impatient and dangerous people are recklessly motorizing their vehicles. In fact, I have video of my friend who will be addressing you tonight almost being hit by a car not yielding to the right-of-way at this intersection. I wonder how long we are going to have to feel and fear being killed in the street before one of us is actually killed in the street. My neighbors and I are witness to the awful behavior that these motorists, people who do not call the town of Youngsville home, my neighbors and I are witness to the awful behavior of these motorists day in and day out that severely impacted our safety, our quality of life, and our willingness to look the other way and not lash out at motorists who use the neighborhood streets as their cut-throughs. Just for walking in our neighborhood, we've been cursed at. We've had people motion like they'll hit us with their vehicles. We have had them come out of their vehicles and accost us. Our neighborhood streets have become conflict zones for vehicles and pedestrians, and there's no doubt that there will be multiple conflicts that devolve into violence if we don't get immediate change. Now, I've seen some of you guys in this neighborhood, and it's never during peak traffic times. My neighbors and I believe that we deserve some time to show you either video collages that I've created of people speeding and running the stop signs at this intersection. But further, I'd like to welcome you all to come to Youngsville between 3 and 6 on any given weekday. Come to my house, visit us, and we can walk around downtown Youngsville. Tonight, I'm not only requesting that you guys motion in support of everything that the town manager, Nathan Page, has asked of you in the bypass update address on September 3rd, I'm also formally requesting your audience for a walkabout in Youngsville at peak motorist time so you can fully comprehend the dangers that your constituents deal with day in and day out. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, our next speaker is Ashley Rizzo.
Good evening, everyone. Bear with me, I'm a little nervous. First time I've spoken to you guys. My name is Ashley Rizzo. I live in the Youngsville's downtown center, 1 block off of Main Street on the north side. Recently, we've been told that the neighborhood we live in is referred to as the current Youngsville bypass, except it isn't a bypass. It's a street. It's a neighborhood that we live on. We don't have sidewalks. We don't have crosswalks. We don't even have lines in the road. As I'm sure you can imagine, this causes an enormous problem, especially when living on the aforementioned bypass that isn't actually a bypass. The people who use our bypass are definitely not citizens of our neighborhood. Most of them aren't even citizens of Youngsville or the 27596 area code. We, the people who live in the downtown center, pay extra taxes for the privilege of living in town. Most days, I assure you, it's no longer a privilege. We deal with shouting from drivers that are mad that we are in their way. Speeding, they run stop signs, just the large volumes of traffic, and litter thrown out of their windows into our yards, etc., etc., etc. A year ago, next month, my husband was hit on Main Street in a crosswalk, just trying to bring home ice cream from Scoops, which is a local ice cream store on Main Street. Instead of relaxing on our couch, watching a movie and eating ice cream, we spent the entire night in the ER. The man who was driving told me he didn't see the crosswalk or my husband until it was too late. Just imagine that for a minute. Your loved one is hit 1 block away from home while walking in the pedestrian crosswalk. How safe do you think you'd feel walking in your neighborhood? The neighborhood with no sidewalks. The neighborhood located on the current Youngsville bypass. Youngsville administration has been working really hard to get the actual Highway 96 bypass rolling. NCDOT has made it clear that they won't help us complete that project anytime soon. But as our elected Franklin County officials, I implore you to consider the following items Nathan Page has asked for you. Adoption of a small area transportation plan, trading unusable property 1-for-1 with impacted property owners in the right of way, budgeting for a portion of construction expenses in the fiscal year 2027, passing a resolution in support of alternate alignment for trucking routes, and allocating water for Rolling Meadows to build 1/3 of the bypass with private investment. In addition, I'd be happy to host any of you who would like to witness our bypass in person. Come to Youngsville, see what we live with daily, and I'll gladly walk my neighborhood with you and see how safe you feel. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Heidi Preddy.
Good evening. My name is Heidi Preddy. I'm a mother, wife, Master of Science, and Director of Operations and Human Resources for a Raleigh company. I live at 302 North Nassau Street in Youngsville with my husband, Youngsville native Stephen Preddy, and our daughter Letty. I have lived at this address since 2018, and my husband's family has been in our home since it was built in the 50s. I want to thank you, Franklin County Board of Commissioners, for hearing my plea tonight, and for the few items where your 2025 budget addresses funds for Youngsville. Those items being Youngsville's solid waste convenience site that is anticipated to be completed in December 2024, and the US 1 North Commerce Park to help bring more businesses and hopefully more jobs to Youngsville. We thank you greatly for supporting our fire departments and the public utilities capital project of the North Cross Street water main in Youngsville. Other than the aforementioned funding for my town within Franklin County jurisdiction, there are no funds outlined for the current and projected population growth in Youngsville outside of town limits. This concerns me as I live directly across the street from the stop sign at Winston and North Nassau in the north block of downtown Youngsville. With the steady increase in traffic due to the influx of people moving to this area into subdivisions approved by this Board of Commissioners, not the town of Youngsville, there are more cars on the road and our streets are overrun and underfunded. The thousands of vehicles, trucks, cars, and tractor trailers that come into my neighborhood daily pose an enormous risk to my family's safety and the safety of my neighbors in the greater downtown Youngsville area. I have witnessed thousands of people flying down North Nassau Street, running the Winston Street stop sign, even driving at full speed into our driveway and narrowly avoiding a collision with our parked cars. Speeding down Winston Street as a cut through to avoid downtown traffic, and running the stop sign at Cross and Winston. Daily, I witnessed tens of people run the stop sign at Cross and Franklin while out for a walk. I've almost been hit at this intersection more times than I can count, as Mason just advised. People don't let us cross the street in our own neighborhood, let alone on Main Street. Our neighborhood coalition has begun discussions with the town of Youngsville Board of Commissioners for immediate action towards pedestrian safety. But without county and state funds to take action and prioritize the safety of Franklin County citizens who live in downtown Youngsville, their hands are all but tied. Some of the roads, including mine, are under NCDOT jurisdiction, so the town has no say. The Franklin County citizens living in Youngsville need immediate funding for increased pedestrian visibility tools, such as working streetlights, large signs that pedestrians have the right of way, crosswalks, flashing lights at the current crosswalks, and sidewalks. Please help our town save the lives of the people who live here by providing the resources we need to thrive. I would love to walk on a sidewalk with streetlights from my house across town to Letty Park so my daughter can play, where pedestrians actually have the right of way and people are forced to slow down and let us cross the road without having to flag down drivers after waiting 3 to 5 minutes. Longer term, I would ask that the Franklin County Board of Commissioners consider allocating resources to Youngsville for the following: adoption of a small area transportation plan, trading unusable property 1-to-1 with impacted property owners in the right of way, budgeting for a portion of construction expenses in the fiscal year of 2027 for $1 million, passing a resolution in support of alternate alignment for trucking routes, and allocating water for Rolling Meadows to build 1/3 of the bypass through private investment. I challenge the Franklin County Board of Commissioners to prioritize your own citizens' safety in Youngsville by supporting us with funds to accomplish the safety measures needed to have a thriving neighborhood once again. It shouldn't be dangerous to walk out our doors and cross the street in what, until recently, was a quiet little farm town. I also would like to invite you to come to Youngsville anytime between 3 and 6 p.m., but don't just come down Main Street. Come to Franklin Street and Cross Street. Come to Winston Street, and what you'll find are dangerous conditions for our people. Come and see. Thank you for your time and your willingness to hear from your people. Have a blessed night.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Scott Strickland.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Strickland, 8435 Highway 56. I'm still under the weather with my surgery, but what I want to talk to you about tonight is the bund survey. I put in a request for some surplus vehicles, and we're in need of, we got equipment coming in, and we need vehicles to put this equipment on to be able to go out and assist Franklin County when we have traffic control, storm, or whatever, rehab. We got several sitting on the lot now that we could put to use, and we need to do that. The second thing I want to talk to you about, we teamed up again with Franklin Fire Department. We made our third load to Black Mountain of supplies, and we continue to get supplies out of Walmart. Miss Kathy has done a great thing by helping the CERT team do what they need to do to be a CERT group. We're collecting stoves and stuff now, the little camping stoves to send out and up there. And I actually got some family up there that was hit with this storm up there, so they're going through a tough time trying to get the house back on the foundation. So, you know, as we think about that and how blessed we are here, keep supporting these drives that these folks are doing because they need it. It's just heartbreaking. The third thing that I want to talk to you about, since we started this group, we've made progress. We're making great progress. For the first time ever, we're going to have 2 Con Ed classes running in Franklin County. In January, we're working out the details right now. We're going to have a medical responder class happening here in Franklin County, along with a EMT. And once they pass all that, we'll go on up to the paramedic level. Steve Barney has been great working with us with trying to get this done, but the trouble was finding an instructor. But now we got some instructors that want to come to Franklin County and do stuff, and so we're willing to work with them as they work with us. So we're looking forward for the Board of Commissioners to help us get whatever we need to make this happen. And I can't say nothing but great things about the CERT group here in Franklin County. All 3 groups are working together, partnering. Nick has been great contacting us, getting stuff done. I can't say nothing but great things. And I'd like to thank Darryl Chalk for helping us put this stuff and getting it to Black Mountain with his fire department. All the fire departments have been great working together, getting stuff done. And I want to thank Mark for being the DJ and stuff for our events at Walmart. We couldn't do it without him. And I forgot to do it last meeting, and I want to thank Commissioner Ford for coming by and speaking at Walmart. That meant a lot to a lot of people. And Miss Kathy, she said, I didn't know that he had so many great things to say. I said, you don't know Harry. I said, he's been in this business this long for that. I said, but all the commissioners are just as great, but we can't get them all there in one place at one time. I said, so if you need anything, don't hesitate to come to ask them, because that's what they're there for. They'll work with you and you work with them. And she does a lot of things behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know. When they have to take children in, she provides the baby formula and diapers and stuff. There's a lot of things that people don't know that Walmart does for our communities behind the scenes. And so I hope at some point that we can get her here and maybe present her with a plaque at some point, because I think that'd be the right thing to do, because she works with Scott over at the health department day in, day out, trying to meet their needs also, you know, and so I think it'd be the right thing to do. Because people like that go out beyond, I think need to be recognized. And that's all I have tonight, and we're gonna keep doing what we do best, and hope to be able to report something to you next week.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Right, is there any more sign-ups back there on the sheet? We took this up a few minutes before we called the meeting to order. I want to make sure we're not missing anybody. Good to go. All right, thank you. All right, our next item is item 3, action items. Section A, the Public Safety Radio System Update. Christy Sharon, Emergency Communications Director, will introduce Ken Steer of Williams Communications to update the board on the Public Safety Radio System implementation. Rebecca Norwood with TUSA Consulting will also be in attendance. Thank you. Ariel.
We have Ken Steer with Williams Communications here to give you your monthly updates for the radio project. Rebecca could not make it tonight, although I do believe she's watching. But Norm is here with TUSA Consulting, should you have any questions for TUSA. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Good evening, Commissioners. Good to see everybody. So, what's changed since the last time I was here was we have completed the change order 2 for the Bond High School site. So we've launched the Bond High School site. We just completed the site survey and what they call the 1A, which allows them to then start the site acquisition process where they go out and do the NEPAs, which are environmental studies, they do historical studies, things like that. It's all part of the process that they have to go through. So that's all good news, that's all moving forward. We look forward to that. We're also in the throes of wrapping up the site construction, going through site inspections, getting power turned on the sites, and in about 2, maybe 3 weeks, we'll start installing antennas and microwave dishes and putting equipment in the shelters to begin all that process. So that's all well underway. The other thing that I think at some point we have to work through are the, what are we gonna do about the coverage for the 401 corridor. We need to wrap up with what the approach is on that. Yeah, we talked about the last time I was here. And so we'd like to get that wrapped up, hopefully by the December meeting, if at all possible. So we know whether we need to do something at that location or not. I can answer any questions.
Weren't we supposed to have you back or somebody, we were gonna have discussion about that at a later meeting? Weren't we gonna do that
About the new hope.
about the new
Right.
site?
Not the New Hope site, this would have been I'll say
The
the New
one that
Hope
was
site. Yes,
lower.
that's right, yes, ma'am. You are correct.
And we were talking about the antenna being lower than it was proposed to be?
Yes,
the
tower was
tower.
restricted by the FAA, they
Yes,
said we can only
and
go.
the coverage for
That is correct, very good, that's correct. And that was gonna happen at the last, meeting, the Monday meeting, but, I was not invited back, Rebecca was not invited back, so I don't know what the timing is for the pleasure of the board to have that discussion. I'm glad to come and do it at any time, I'm sure Rebecca would, it was warm as well.
I think that's important that we talk about that, and we had talked about asking, one of our firemen and
Yes.
Daryl to talk about it, and talk about what it needs to lower that, or what we need to
Certainly.
do.
We did go off as a result of the discussion back in September and pick a location, if we were to be asked to build a tower in that area, that would be a lower tower, it's like 140 feet, that we could do that.
To put another tower
If you
there?
needed it to meet
An
the
addition.
coverage, yes, ma'am.
To
And that's
solve the
more
new
money.
hope
To
issue.
solve the New Hope issue. Yes.
Which is another $1 million.
In that range, a little bit more than that, but that's if you asked it to be the full specification, so you can have third parties on the tower and things like that, and property would have to be acquired for that location. That would solve that problem. There were other items that Rebecca had suggested one could do as well, or you could wait and test and see what the final result is in that area. We're gonna be very close to beating it. We can't guarantee it.
And we're still not getting a discount because that tower's not as tall as y'all had
You
proposed.
know, but you actually have even better coverage because it's right on top of the area where you want it to cover, so actually, wipes out any areas that were of concern in that little
So
2-mile
the,
block.
so you're saying that being lower is still going to be better coverage?
Yes, because we don't have to cover as broad an area, we only have to cover that roughly a 2-square-mile area.
Without an additional tower?
No, you need an additional.
With an additional tower,
Yes, that's
and an
correct.
additional $1 million?
You were asking about any kind of reimbursement because the New Hope Tower was lower, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're talking about the new
Oh,
tower.
I'm
So
sorry,
y'all were
I'm
having
sorry.
two different
Yes.
conversations.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, for understanding that, thank you.
What do you think we were talking about?
Yeah, he's
Anyway,
talking
go
about
ahead.
the new tower.
Yes.
I'm talking about the existing New Hope Tower is lower than what y'all have proposed it to be.
That is correct, but we did go and negotiate a change to that site. There were other costs associated with it, were a trade-off. There were some other requirements for cement and the way we had to move the location of that due to the rock ledge that was there. So there were some other factors that entered into that.
And you think that was a trade-off for it being lower?
Yes.
Now, you're talking about the New Hope, you're talking about doing another antenna at New Hope to enhance, okay, that's off that part, okay.
That's right.
But within so many feet of that, another
Well, it
additional
would be
tower.
more than feet, it'd be more miles.
Okay. But he's saying another
Where
additional
you,
tower. that
think
is-
of where 401 comes out over the border, that would be actually a little bit west of 401 on the southern border.
But that wasn't originally planned for.
Correct.
Let me clarify a little bit. After the conversation that we had about the coverage, the New Hope piece, I asked Williams to go back and evaluate if we were to address this issue as far as keeping the coverage department the same, what's gonna have to happen? Their response is you need another tower in that 401 corridor area, about 140, 145 feet, to be able to meet the 20 dB for sure in that area. That's where that came from. I have not brought that to you yet because we're still negotiating that and talking about that. And I have a meeting on Wednesday with the advisory board to share that information and get input from that board as well. Does that help?
Yes,
A little bit.
my concern is, and I don't know how to say this, but it looks like that the company is not holding up the original contract by changing this. The original contract was to put a tower so high, and that's what the study, the plan was evidently.
Correct.
It was the plan,
That was
and
the
now the company cannot,
So to walk you through that cycle, we did a proposal based on the RFP and said we were gonna put a 300-foot tower at the New Hope site. It wasn't called New Hope in the proposal, but
Right,
same
right.
location, okay?
But one of our specs was that 20 dB though.
And meet the 20
Right.
dB in all the 3 or 4 different areas, one of them being the 401 corridor, City of Bund, City of Lewisburg, all those kinds of things are met. And the way the contract is set up is, if you propose your design, then you go to the design review, which we did with the consultants and the county team. And everybody's blessed it, all believed that was gonna be a buildable tower at the height we needed it to be built at. Then we went out and did the process of getting the approvals from all the various entities, namely, in this case, the FAA has to approve the tower at that kind of height, especially near the airport. And if something changes that's out of your control, and this is per the contract, it allows, the contract says, if there are changes, we will work with the county to come up with a resolution for how to approach that. And it could be a change order to resolve it. So the county has the right to direct us. If we can't do something because of outside factors like government approvals, then we have to come back and ask for a change order. So that's the process we're in. There's probably, I'd say, Gina, 4 or 5 clauses that have reasons for how you do that, but in this case, this would have been site conditions, would have been the main one. But there's several others that that we can review and talk to and explain how that happened that way.
I have
But the
a question.
contract did account for that possibility and gave that approach.
Being in the business that you're in, my question is, why did you not know enough to do the due diligence prior to this finding out from the FAA? Why couldn't you have done the due diligence early on and known this prior to contract?
So we do certain things during the proposal phase, but if you don't win the contract, then you're gonna have to expend all this effort to go do something that you wouldn't have been compensated for. So we do a fair amount of design activity. We pick sites, we look for buildable sites when we're making our proposals, so that we're competitive. And then but we can't say that's the final site and location until we then come in, prove the coverage is gonna be met, coverage design is gonna be met, and then we go through the approval process of getting the sites actually blessed by the various parties environmentally, historically, and then of course the FAA and the FCC. In this case, everything went through except for the FAA came back and said, we aren't gonna allow you to build it at that height. Now, we went back to them because they told us even a lower height. I think they came back and said 147 feet at that location, and we said, no, we'd rather go higher, and we asked for that compensation. They came back at the height they came back at, but we then went to the county and said we could look for other locations. So we came in with 3 or 4 other choices, and that would have required the county to have bought property instead of that location, which was county property, go to third parties which are in the immediate area. You could only go so far west before you got into the flight path, so we didn't have great choices, but we had several choices. And I think there was actually dialogue with a landowner, if I remember him, I can't think of their names, but you actually got into trading numbers back and forth that we were trying to pick up that property, so we thought maybe we could build a higher tower. So we did all that kind of work, but you rarely get to say you're gonna have 100% design when you do your proposal. That isn't the process in the public safety law, but I'll let Norm talk about that.
Commissioners, good evening. My name is Norm Folger, and I'm here on behalf of TUSA Consulting. Rebecca couldn't be here tonight, as Christy mentioned. I recall, I think a month ago, Rebecca did a very nice job of trying to explain the risks early on in the project. TUSA sees this all around the country. It doesn't just happen, unfortunately. It didn't just happen in this county. Most recently, it happened in Wichita County, Texas. Same thing. You never know what the FAA is going to do until the very last minute in building a project and implementing a project. In this particular case, FAA came back and said you can't build it at this height. That was one of the risks early on in this project when we had the design review. And the design was frozen based upon some assumptions that we're making, that we're going to get approvals from NEPA, from SHPO, State Historical, as well as FAA. That we're at the mercy of the FAA. It's not at Williams' control. It's certainly not at TUSA's control. It's certainly not at the county's control. It's at the control of the FAA and solely the FAA. And unfortunately, it came into effect on this project.
I have a question. So you say there were other sites available that would have provided the full 20 DP coverage?
But when I say available, they would have met the requirement had the landowner been willing to offer a parcel for that amount of money.
So, when we went to the Board of Adjustment for the New Hope site, there was concerns from the neighbors in that area. We started exploring alternate locations around that area as an alternate to that site. This was before we had everything in order to submit the actual study to the FAA. As we worked through that and started the due diligence on the New Hope site, the FAA come back and said, you gotta lower it 294 as high as you can go. And when we did the special use permit here with the Board of Commissioners, part of what I spoke about that night was the reduction in height, and that we had looked at other sites to the west and to the east. But if we went to the west, which would have been closer to the airport, it would have been even more height restrictions. And if we went further east, then the elevation of the land changed, therefore the coverage got worse. So all of this FAA stuff started back in 2020, late 2023. But we couldn't make any final determinations until the site for Bunn, the Bunn High School site, was settled on and confirmed to verify what the coverage was actually gonna be in that area. So that's why it came about then. Does that offer any clarification?
So when we finally secured the Bunn High School site, that's when you knew we weren't gonna have 20 dB coverage.
That's when we locked it in for sure, because depending on where the Bunn High School site went, it could have been worse, or it might have, maybe by some chance, been better over there, but worse somewhere else. And what he was talking to earlier about the New Hope site and the other additional costs, there was rock that was found and the site had to be shifted. All of these are things that when they do the proposals, when you start these projects, they make assumptions. You assume normal soil in an area. But then they come back and you have to pay for all these studies, a good amount of money. They do the actual studies and they come back and it may not be normal soil. So you may have to have more concrete, or you may have to put fill in there, or things of that nature. So there's always a little give and take on the tower piece, from my experience with those projects.
At the first Bunn site, was we being guaranteed the 20 dB coverage with the lower height at New Hope, at the New Hope site? Would we have been guaranteed that?
No.
So therefore, we knew way a long time ago we weren't gonna have 20 dB coverage.
We knew that it was gonna impact coverage in that area. The Bunn site location would either make it worse or keep it the same.
But we didn't know we were impacted until we restricted it to the 194. That was when we, 294, thanks, that was when we knew. But at that point then, we were waiting for Bunn to finalize itself, where was it gonna go? Because actually, at some point, we were saying, if they didn't give us one where we wanted it to be closer to the city, we might have to put in 2 or 3 sites to get the city coverage as well. So because we were looking on the other side of the city out at the junior high, is up there, or prison, there were a couple sites that were options.
All the towers are dependent upon each other and where they're located at, and what coverage and the lay of the land, and not, so until everything's finalized, you don't know the final outcome of what's gonna be adversely affected, how bad it's gonna be adversely affected, things of that nature. Royal was also affected by that, it's slightly lower too.
Do they have 20 dB coverage there?
Yes, that's too far, north on 401 to help that lower section.
So there was no way, no area, no spot in that area that we could have built one tower to have covered the whole area that was needing the 20 dB coverage. Is that what I'm hearing, without an additional tower?
That is what you're hearing, and that's primarily because you're right in the oval of the footprint of the airport, and then you have a glide path on top of that, and you've got to stay even lower for it. So while we would like to build bigger towers closer, we knew we couldn't get them approved. That is why we stayed where we were.
So have we ruled out that we're not gonna have that 20 dB coverage at New Hope, or are we waiting to see what coverage we'll have?
We've got predicted, and I believe Rebecca showed those predicted maps, and that, they're just predicted maps. Similar to what we see when we go and buy a cell phone from Verizon or AT&T, it's predicted coverage. Then we find out, even though that's green, it doesn't talk where I need it to talk. They were predicted maps. To answer your question specifically, no, until we build this system out and we can go in and do the coverage testing, we may still meet that, but predicted coverage maps say that we won't. Are there a number of 20 dB buildings down in that corridor? No, I think Rebecca also addressed that. There aren't that many buildings that we're talking about. I think we can hit 18 dB comfortably.
But they're projected to be built down there. That was the concern, was it's a growing area. So
It is a growing area,
request was
so
to try to
we can
accomplish
address it at that time after we do the coverage testing. Or we can look at other alternatives that were addressed, such as the DVRSs, the vehicular repeaters, were the BDAs, building amplifiers. What was the one other option? What was it besides the tower? It was accept the 18 dB coverage and reduce the coverage in the contract. Those were the 4 options. Now, the contract's it was a pretty well-written contract. There's a section that talks about change orders and about changes in how they've got to be agreed upon by both parties. So there's a very good section about that after design review, and that's kind of what we've run into here. We froze the design based upon Williams' design, and then the design changed. So now we've got to enter into that clause, those clauses in the contract that address changes.
But you could you could grant the 18 dB area, test, and then decide, I do need a tower, I can put one in. I don't need a tower, I don't have to put one in.
Okay. It's a lot of good discussion, but there's a lot of things, that the attorney would need to be looped in on to where we cannot reach a decision tonight. I would strongly suggest that allow me to meet with the advisory board, continue working with Williams and Tusa, work with county manager's office and the county attorney, and come back maybe at the November meeting, to work out the details, because we can go back and forth with this all night long, and there's a lot of other stuff that needs to be considered before we choose a route.
Right, I don't think we're here to make a decision tonight. I think we're here educating ourselves on this, because we've been talking about it for a while. I have one more question, and that is this additional tower, so we can get everything up and working and running just as we've got it right now. And then say in another year or two, we want to add another tower, we can do that, and it'll just add to our system what we've got.
Yes.
Yes and no, and I'm gonna say that way because I need to consult with the attorney about specific parts of the contract, whether or not that would be included in this system, or if it would be a separate contract, because you have to close out one or the other.
Right, I'm not even interested in that, I just wanna know. if
You
it's
can
doable.
always add to later.
Okay, that's what I wanna know if it's doable, okay.
I have one little simple question. All of the radio signal from the towers are horizontal signals, not vertical? Is that correct?
Actually, it's both, but, you know, you have
Both?
the antenna's up, and it shoots out, but our antennas are designed to shoot it in areas, so it's not a circular spreading it out because of the way we had to meet the coverage requirements. So on some towers, we're shooting it into like the city of Buck.
FCC dictates that too, based on your county line and not
Oh,
going over your
yeah.
county line coverage, so you have to use directional antennas to send signal certain directions.
You have that to contend with as well. You have to honor the non-interfering with other systems out there. So yes, it's a very complex design with trying to reduce the number of towers you're putting in, because you don't want to break the budget or lose the contract, but you still have to meet the contract that says you got to achieve this coverage.
The reason I ask that question is I'm a ham operator as well, so I know radio attenuation quite well. You're saying it's a combination of horizontal and vertical signaling?
I would agree. The simplest, I'm a non-technical person. Rebecca's Tusa's technical person. Here's the easiest way I can explain. If this is the tower and the antenna here, it's propagating out this way, it's also propagating down this way, so horizontal and vertical. However, there's gonna be shadowing down here because this podium blocks the signal right at the base of whatever this building, if it's a building or something, so the answer is both. You hit it right on. It's horizontal and vertical. But there's gonna be some potential shadowing down below, depending on, you can down tilt and correct it, but the tilt of the antenna corrects some of that. If that makes sense.
And the elements that are on the antenna can be adjusted. There's 4 different elements around that antenna that can be moved and directed in different
But
directions.
the thing with this, as a ham, you're trying to shoot it as far away as you can go, because you want to talk to the other side of the earth.
Depending on the type of attenuation.
Right, but in general, the hams go unbelievable distances and set records and always try not to reach other. We're trying to put coverage where the users on the radio system need their coverage. So I don't really care how far out I go. And the description said I can't go out beyond certain boundaries anyway. I want to cover the area that I have to cover. And then because it's in building, I want to cover those areas even better. because there's growth in the buildings, you want the radio system to work. So it's a complicated trade-off. We spend a lot knowing we can build the site where we want to build it. When we designed the system, we looked for affordable sites, mostly county land. We didn't want to have to buy property. That did happen, unfortunately, but
All right,
for the most part.
let me interrupt here for a minute. Okay. I think all of us agree here that we don't want to cut down on that coverage at 20 dB. And this is not over with tonight. It's not been accepted. It won't be accepted. We're all satisfied with it. I think we were mentioning about meeting back in November and getting a little bit more update. I think we need to wait for that, see what comes up, because I too feel very strongly about keeping with this 20 dB. You know, because I don't want to do something later on, years out, we're being haunted by it again, like half has happened to
I
us.
still need a couple more weeks to vet the options.
But anyway, like I say, we're not here okaying this yet, so let's give it another 30 days, we'll re-meet, and see what y'all can come up with. All right,
Could make a comment?
sure, Ms. Denton.
This topic might require a work session. That might be something to consider because of the level of detail that we have here. If you all recall, when we worked through this original process with the radio system, the board had a number of work sessions, and this is complicated, complex, and we probably all need a good reminder of it. So that just might be an idea to throw out for the board to consider at some point.
Excellent questions, good dialogue, and I don't usually get to talk this long, so I thank you all. Enjoyed it.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. All right, moving on. Our item B, VIA update, has been canceled. Our person, Elliot Clark, is out sick tonight, so we're gonna take that one off the agenda. We're gonna move on to item C, the fiscal year 25 finance update. Jamie Holtzman, Finance Director, will provide an update on Franklin County financial performance for fiscal year 25. Ms. Holtzman, roll it.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to update you on the finances of the county for fiscal year 25. The fiscal year 25 budgeted general fund revenues are $116.3 million. This does not include the fund balance appropriated. The current amount of fund balance appropriated is $13.75 million. As of September 30th, $48.7 million in revenues, or 41.8% of budget, has been collected. Current taxes are budgeted at $62.4 million, and $39.4 million, or 63.1%, have been collected as of 9/30. This is a higher percentage collected compared with the same period last year of 60.8%. The total delinquent taxes budgeted for fiscal year 25 is $360,000, with $220,009, or 61.1%, being collected today. Local sales tax budgeted for fiscal year 25 is $17.25 million. The county collected $1.62 million in September for July sales. This is 1.9% increase from the collections in July of 2023. As you may recall, the county receives the sales tax distribution from the state, and it's 2 months behind. Revenues are tracking well for the Register of Deeds. 34.64%, or $415,627 of the budgeted Register of Deeds fees have been collected. This is ahead of the fiscal year 24 collection of 25.91% for the same time period. Inspection fees are $577,207, or 38.48% of budget being collected as of 9/30. This is in line with the collection rate for the previous fiscal year. Interest income collected is $772,978, or 19.55% of budget has been received for July and August. The county has $99.4 million in North Carolina Management Trust as of 9/30 and $73.06 million in the bank. The August interest rates were as high as 5.07%. I will continue to monitor the county's investments. The total general fund expenditure budget for $130.1 million. And the total expenditures, including encumbrances, as of 9/30 is $33.3 million. This translates to 25.5% of the expenditure budget has been spent or encumbered at this time. This is in line with previous year's spending. We're only 25% through fiscal year 25. Departments are doing well monitoring their budgets and staying on target. Franklin County has made all debt payments timely and has paid $2.9 million in debt service as of 9/30. The remaining general fund debt payments budgeted for fiscal year 25 total $7,062,154. The total general fund outstanding debt balance as of 9/30 is $40.6 million. All property in the county has an assessed value. Per the board-approved debt management policy, the tax-supported to assessed value cannot be more than 3%. The county is currently at 0.32%, which is well below the policy, and the current assessed value is over $12.6 billion, just for reference. The Triangle North Executive Airport has a total of $1,127,500 budgeted for revenues and has collected $412,660, or 36.6% as of 9/30. This does not take into account the amount of property tax that is generated by the aircraft and equipment that is housed at the airport. The total budgeted expenditures for the airport are $1,739,418, and 28%, or $488,089, has been spent or encumbered to date. The total revenues budgeted for the Public Utilities Enterprise Fund is $23.6 million. This does not include the $458,870 of fund balance appropriated. Total revenues collected as of 9/30 are $7.6 million, or 32.2% of budget. Last year at this time, Public Utilities had collected 23.4%. The total water fee collections budgeted is $13.5 million, with $4.36 million, or 32.5%, collected as of 9/30. The total sewer fee collections budgeted for fiscal year 24 is $7.8 million, with $2.3 million, or 29.5%, being collected. The new water and sewer rate increase was effective with the September billing and not reflected in these revenue figures. The capacity replacement fees, or SCF fees, budgeted are $1.4 million, with $548,300, or 39.2%, collected as of 9/30. This revenue is transferred to the Public Utilities Capital Project Fund for future projects. The total expenses budgeted for public utilities is $24.1 million. 17.9%, or $4.3 million, including encumbrances, has been spent. Water purchases total $830,605 through August, which is 15.4% of the $5.4 million budgeted. The capacity replacement fees received have not been expensed and transferred to the Public Utilities Capital Project Fund. In addition, there are debt service payments that are budgeted that have not come due. The total Public Utilities Enterprise Fund outstanding debt balance as of 9/30 is $17,324,230. The total revenues budgeted for the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund is $5.8 million. This does not include the $25,000 of fund balance appropriated. As of 9/30, $2.92 million, or 50.4% of the budgeted revenues have been collected. This is higher than last year at this time, which was 43.6%. The total solid waste availability fees budgeted is $3.45 million, and $2.24 million has been collected, or 64.9%. The total budgeted for tipping fees is $2.03 million, with $634,436, or 31.2%, having been collected. The solid waste total expense budget is $5.81 million, with $2.49 million spent, including encumbrances. This is 42.8% of budget. The encumbrances include the contracted waste disposal contract and the convenience site contracts for the entire year. As these expenses are paid, the encumbrances are released. The solid waste fund is in line with their expenses and revenues when compared to last year's. The Tourism Development Authority has not paid out any grants in fiscal year 25 as of September 30th. The TDA has approved grants for the Barbecue and the Bird for $5,000, the Alan DeHart Concert Series for $5,000, and the Fair at the Farm for $2,600 for fiscal year 25. The next round of TDA grant applications are due October 31st, and the next TDA meeting is scheduled for 5 p.m. on November 18th in the Veteran Services Conference Room here at Franklin Plaza. As a reminder, the fiscal year 24 audit is not complete at this time. However, the projected increase to the general fund balance for fiscal year 24 is $984,680. The projected general fund balance is $67.7 million, and the projected unassigned fund balance as of 6/30/24 is $32.1 million. This does not include the additional $4.1 million that has been assigned from fund balance since July for fiscal year 25. The unassigned percent of budget is 27.17%, which is above the board adopted policy of 18%. During fiscal year 24, Franklin County stayed within the expenditure budget and did well with revenues. In addition, the county was able to contribute to certain board-designated projects. For example, $3 million was contributed to the EMS station project, $1,573,064 additional for the judicial complex, and $1,201,500 for the 89 acres of property for economic development. Winston Williams, Creech, Evans and Company are the county's current external auditors. The county has been working diligently with the auditors to complete our fiscal year 24 audit. We are currently on schedule to have the audit completed in November. Thank you for your time, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any board members have any questions?
Ma'am? Yes, ma'am.
All right, moving right along. Thank you very much for your presentation. Moving on to item D, project flight update. Bo Carson, Airport Director, will introduce Greg Vanderbilt with the Michael Baker International Engineer of Record for Triangle North Executive Airport to update the board on project flight. And Jamie Holtzman, Finance Director, will update the board on funding for the project. Mr. Carson?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Madam Manager, thank you for the opportunity to present tonight regarding Project Flight at Triangle North Executive Airport. In 2024, the airport began implementing Project Flight to enhance airport operations, logistics, and safety. To speak to some of those topics and its funding, I have with me our engineer of record, Mr. Jared Penny, who's filling in for Mr. Greg Vandermolen, as well as Ms. Jamie Holtzman, our County Finance Director. This grant will further advance the airport and Franklin County forward to attract future tenants at our airport. I will now turn it over to Mr. Penny from Michael Baker Engineering.
Good evening. Greg couldn't make it. He had a deposition he had to go to, so I'm filling in for Mr. Vandermolen tonight. So I'm just going to give you an update on the project as it is so far. As you know, this is a corporate apron expansion. If you can see in the photos on the bottom, you can see that phase of the project is complete. And that adds capacity to that area of the airport for safety reasons. As they continue to build hangars further out, that gives the aircraft the ability to move in the apron safely without hitting other aircraft. So that portion of the project is complete right now. And if you can also see throughout the three photos, there's an access road as part of this project that extends from the main road, the airport road, down and gives access to the area. Currently, they're using a taxiway, which is a very large safety concern for vehicles and aircraft to be on the same pavement, especially aircraft pavement. So that also gives fuel access from their fuel farm to that area so that they're not accessing the corporate area through the taxiway as well. So it's a big safety enhancement to the airport just help them have better access for all vehicles. But just keep going. So, additional tasks, everything's going so fine. They'll be scheduled to be complete with the project in about 2 or 3 weeks. So we're looking forward for that before the end of the year. There were a couple of things that did come up throughout the project, and I'm going to run through them here with you. Some additional tasks that have come up is the water main extension. Originally, there were 2 service lines that went through there. We're just going to extend the 2 service lines, but instead of doing that, we went back to just 1 main water line. So that required a little bit of redesign, and it gave, because we had to go through redesign and permitting to get that completed through the state and the county, that added time to the contract, where the contractor just, they had to wait because the water line was directly in the middle of where they were working. In addition to the construction time extended a little bit, the inspections had to extend that amount of time as well. So with that whole water main extension was an increase to the project for $48,000. The benefits of the water main is that it increases the capacity a little bit to the area in need for these larger hangars for fire purpose reasons, and it makes it a whole lot easier to tap into that instead of having 2 separate service lines. The other item on there is the power line relocation. The power lines, the main power line that goes back there was not deep enough, too shallow for what we were doing, so it had to get moved. Wake Electric relocated the power line, which works out great. They followed the new fence line around and got it out of the way of any future development in that area, so it works out perfectly. And that was to the tune of $71,000 for that. Any questions on those few items so far? Okay, moving on. I'll give it over to Jamie, she'll give you up to the budget.
First off, there's no additional county contributions required for Project Flight. The board previously accepted $128,000 from the Airport Economic Development Grant, and that has not been recognized in the project itself. The county has another $150,000 in fiscal year 24 non-primary entitlement funds, or NPEs, that can be used for this project. In addition, the federal government matched the NPE for fiscal year 2019, 20, and 21, where the county didn't have to do those matches. And that was for a total of $46,169, and that has not been recognized in the project revenues as well. The current approved Project Flight budget is $3,291,920. Once the additional $324,169 that I just went over is recognized, then the total Project Flight budget will be $3,616,089. Any questions before? And so the request of the board tonight is to approve adding the $324,169 in grants to the Project Flight budget with no additional funding required by the county, and authorize the county manager to approve all necessary documents and change orders in consultation with the county attorney up to the total project budget amount. And if there's any questions, we'd be glad to answer.
Any board members have any questions?
I move to approve the funding.
Second. And a motion made and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. Moving on to item 4 is appointments. The Bund Planning Board, ETJ. The board is asked to consider reappointing Diane Barrett for a 3-year term to expire December 2027. What's the pleasure?
Motion approved.
Okay, been a motion made and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 5 is other business. Any other commissioner have any other business?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, concerning the recent, performance pay increase, I've been getting a lot of feedback from that. This county is bleeding employees. We're losing them left and right to other counties. I've talked to a lot of employees, and the number one thing I hear about this performance pay is that they feel insulted. I feel like that we need to right this wrong, so I make a motion that we increase this performance to 4%.
I'll second that. Give us on the floor.
So, I think that the performance plan is a little more complicated than that, and just making a motion for like 1%, just tiered. Would it be possible to have the staff take a look at what they can do to improve the performance pay?
I'm open to that. In fact, I will change the motion to do so.
Or we can just say that we're gonna give them another 4% on top of whatever they've got.
That's,
And how much money does that involve? We need to know that, but we could do a cost of living, that could be the cost of living.
however y'all want to title it or whatever,
Like-
let's just correct
Get it
what
done.
we have done. That's all I'm asking.
Because some people supposedly got a 0.5% increase up to, what was the highest, Kim, that they could get?
So let's make sure we're not mixing up a couple of things.
Right.
Performance pay had a 1.5, a 2.5, and 3.5. The 1.5% increase was based on just meeting expectation. And that was modeled after the previous process where everyone got 2.5% every other year. So this allowed employees to get 3% for over a 2-year period. So that's where this modeling came from. And so I would suggest that we do some costing of these things, because those performance pay items were paid in, attributed in July and paid in August of this fiscal year. And now we've come along directly behind that with a classification and compensation study that also has a large percentage, overall average for employees. So I would suggest that we, if you're, as you suggested, amenable to taking a look at this, and then figuring out budget impact and how we plan this, potentially for the next fiscal year's budget, because we've already had 2 things that have affected pay in this fiscal year budget. One is the performance pay that was paid in August, applied in July, and officially in the checks in August. And now, most recently, we're right in the midst of the checks that are gonna come out very soon for the classification and compensation study. So I'd say from a budgetary perspective, we've just heard Jamie indicate that we've already, in the budget amendments we've done, added 4.1 million, which is made up partially of funds that were added to the classification and compensation study. Remember, in the fiscal year 25 budget, that was budgeted to be 1.4 million, we've added some to it. So I would just ask that maybe we let staff look at this and come back to you all with, hear what the concerns are and come back with recommendations.
Soon.
And then,
Yes.
All right, the performance base is every year, every other year?
It's every year, and we're in the midst right now, we're in that cycle where, again, we are either have already set goals or in the process of setting goals. We have a mid-year review in December, and then final reviews are done in the May-June time period. And again, that, whatever that is budgeted for the next fiscal year. So when we put together the budget, when the county puts together the budget for fiscal year 26, then it will include funds to pay for the performance pay activity for fiscal year 25. So that's paid right at the beginning of the next fiscal year.
I still, and I'd asked for this before, I'd like to know how many people, what employees got. I know some got a .5 in that because they weren't full-time employees or whatever the reason. But I would like to know how many people got 1.5, how many people got the 3, all the way up. How many employees got what? That would affect, our employee salaries, the existing employee salaries, what they are. And
That
then,
along with this tenure of those same employees.
yeah, that would be good too. That's good. And then with the, salary study, we have those figures of where everybody falls if we hire new employees and the rates with that, the current ones. So we do have that. So if a person, I would like to know if a person got a good increase of 1.5, it's not a lot of money. That's not a lot of increase. But, if they got a 1.5, and then if they got an increase in the salary study, what is their salaries that they're leaving? Because they've gotten 2 increases. Did it increase enough that they still want to leave? Or are we still below with these 2 increases?
And we can gather all that information.
That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah, and I'm good with that,
And then we can come back, and if we feel that's not enough, we can just do a cost of living or something. A COLA or whatever you want to call it.
Then you'll have numbers that you can solidly work with in terms of the budget. Yes, I
And
would
that
suggest
across the
that.
board.
and that's good,
Yeah.
that was the goal of my motion to begin with, is to open this discussion.
Right.
So that we can take steps to correct the mistakes.
So, don't you need to actually retract your motion?
I will retract my motion, and reframe that. And a motion to move forward with, finance, taking the proper steps, and getting this information to us so that we can make the change.
Okay. Well, I'll second that too.
Okay.
Right, then a motion made and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, any other business? Any commissioners? Here none, I'll move along to item 6, board, manager, and clerk's comments. This is a time set aside for the Board of County Commissioners, county manager, and clerk to the board to report on various activities. The board may also discuss other items of interest. Ms. King? Our attorney, Ms. King? Okay. Moving along, Commissioner Pierce.
No comment at this time.
Commissioner Speed.
No comments.
Commissioner Bunn.
No comments.
Commissioner London.
Yes, just one, earlier in the month to commemorate Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I donated 18 bags to Mariah Perrin Franklin in memory of my mother, who was, sadly, she lost her fight with breast cancer back in 2021. So to honor her, she was a Franklin County native. She was born here in Lewisburg. And just to honor her, I just wanted to donate those bags to breast cancer patients so that they can take them with them to their appointments.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Wright.
I just wanted to let y'all know, I have a relative that spent last week in the West because of their job sent them for their expertise up there. And they said a lot about things that went on, but their first comment was that the whole area looked like a bomb had just dropped on it. If you can imagine, that's what it looked like to me. And I thought that was devastating in itself. The other thing is Franklin Fest is in Franklinton this Saturday. I believe it starts at 12, runs to 5, I believe. Be lots of vendors, there'll be music, there'll be, if you have children, take your children in their Halloween costumes because they can go to each of the vendors and they'll pass out candy and goodies and all that stuff. It's a big event in Franklinton, lots of fun. I hope it's gonna be a pretty day, and if you wanna get out on Saturday, go to Franklin.
Okay. Ms. Kim Denton, our county manager.
Thank you, Chairman Ford. I just want to say again, thank you to the employees who've worked hard to present this information tonight, put together all of the details, and also thank you to the board for their support of our employees and all that's going on in our county. Thank you.
All right, I guess that leaves me. The only thing I have to report on tonight is I have my annual event down at the State Fair, down at Gate 3. And I've been down there 4 straight days. I was off today though. But anyway, the first 4 days I was there. And I couldn't help but notice they have a contingency of Franklin County deputies at Gate 3. And I'm right next to that. And they have been very hard at work making sure everything's safe and secure at the gate there. I mean, there's a ton of people coming in that gate. And they're going through purses, and they're going through those metal detectors, and they're checking baggage. And hats off to all those Franklin County deputies that are working real hard at keeping everything safe and secure for this state fair this year. And so if y'all haven't been, come on down and enjoy the fair. So, a lot going on. And that concludes my report. Moving on to item 7 is closed session. The board is asked to enter into closed session pursuant to the following North Carolina general statutes. The first bullet is NCGS 143-318.11, personnel. NCGS 143-318.11A3, attorney-client privilege communication.
Motion to go into closed session.
Okay, been a motion made to second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. I guess we need to do a roll call on that.
All right, Mr. Pierce?
I said yes.
You said yeah. Mr. Speed?
No.
Mr. Boyd?
No.
Ms. Bragg?
Yes.
Ms. London?
No.
Mr. Bond?
Yes.
I guess that means we don't.
Not going to close session.
Okay. Anything else to come before the board? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
That motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. All right, been a motion made and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.